Morgan's breath formed small white clouds in the cold pre-dawn air over Illinois. She narrowed her eyes, trying to ignore the muscles begging for relief, as she ran the oval track of West Point Military Academy. At 16, her lean body was pushing through a fourth forced lap before sunrise. Punishment for talking back to Commander Rivera the day before. Faster, faster. The commander's voice echoed across the empty field. Or do you want 5 extra laps? Morgan clenched her teeth. 3 months ago, she would have answered with a direct insult. Now, after 6 weeks in this disciplinary hell, she knew silence was her best defense. She almost stumbled as the memory of the Chicago courtroom flashed back. Judge Harriman's weathered face peering over his glasses while he read her record. Vandalism, petty theft, disturbing the peace, nothing extraordinary for a rebellious teenager except for the growing frequency. Her last act had been smashing the windows of the store that refused to hire her mother, Elise Foster, widow for 5 years of a Marine captain killed in Iraq. West Point Military Academy or juvenile detention until you turn 18, Miss Foster. Choose. The memory made Morgan pick up her pace as if she could run away from her own past. The cold cut her face as she finished the last lap, stopping breathless in front of imposing Commander Rivera, a 42-year-old woman with flawless posture and a permanently stern expression. Good finish, Foster. Maybe you inherited more than just the last name from your father after all. Morgan's stomach tightened. Rivera had known her father. Before she could ask, the commander had already turned away, leaving her alone with her ragged breathing and unanswered questions. The academy mess hall buzzed with clinking utensils and tightly controlled chatter from 300 cadets. Morgan pushed her oatmeal around, watching the veterans table where Zoe Chen, an 18-year-old senior cadet, was discussing strategies for the upcoming field exercise with her peers. Zoe had been the first person to show any kindness since Morgan arrived. You've got sharp eyes, Zoe said on day 2, after Morgan silently corrected a younger recruit's stance during formation. Eyes that watch before acting. That matters here, Foster. Morgan rose automatically at her surname, facing Ryan Phillips, a cadet in her squad known for his air of superiority and traditional military family. I hear you're here by court order, he said with open disdain. My father says wasting public money trying to reform delinquents is pointless. Morgan felt her blood boil, her hands curled into involuntary fists. Is there a problem here? Zoe appeared beside them, their senior cadet insignia gleaming on a spotless uniform. Just chatting with our delinquent friend, Phillips answered with a fake smile. Zoe kept her face neutral. Interesting. And how's your father after that little incident with the missing medical supplies in Baghdad? Still trying to get his rank back? Phillips' face went pale. He backed off without another word. You didn't have to do that, Morgan muttered once they were alone. Zoe adjusted her uniform with precise movements. Everyone here carries something, Foster. Some just hide it better than others. Then, lower. Next week's field exercise is in the Blackwood Forest. Prepare well. Rivera will be watching you specifically. Why? To catch me failing. Zoe gave a faint smile. Your father served with Rivera in Iraq, 1st Marine Division. Morgan froze. She never mentioned that. Of course not. Rivera doesn't mix personal and professional. Zoe straightened the insignia on her shoulder. But she's watched you since day 1. That can be good or bad, depending on what you do with it. The following days blurred into exhausting drills. Morgan discovered her body, once used only to running from Chicago police through alleys, responded well to military discipline. Her legs gained definition, her arms grew stronger, and something in her posture began to change. She saw it in the polished windows. She stood taller, more present. During first aid training, she surprised even herself by staying calm under pressure. My mother's a trauma nurse, she explained when instructor Lieutenant Walker praised her tourniquet technique. She did not mention the countless times she attended to her mother after double shifts. when Elise was too exhausted to untie her shoes. In the few allowed phone calls, her mother sounded cautiously optimistic. "How are you feeling there, sweetheart?" "I'm fine, Mom." Morgan hesitated, searching for the right words. "It's hard, but not the way I expected." A significant pause followed. "Your father used to say the same about basic training." Morgan felt a tightness in her chest. Commander Rivera served with him. Elena Rivera. Goodness, she was your father's closest friend in the platoon. She brought the flag at the funeral. Morgan blinked, recalling a tall woman in dress uniform handing her mother the perfectly folded flag. She had been 11, too lost in her grief to register details. The Blackwood Forest glowed orange and red in early fall. 40 cadets had been split into 5-person squads for a 3-day survival exercise. Morgan was in Echo Squad with Ryan Phillips and 3 cadets who rarely spoke to her. Commander Rivera watched from a distance as they set up base camp. "This is not a scout outing," she announced, her voice rolling through the trees. "Each squad has different coordinates. Supplies are limited. Communication is for real emergencies only. You will be graded not just on reaching your destination, but on how you work together." Her gaze lingered on Morgan a moment longer. "Remember, extreme situations reveal who we truly are." Echo Squad trekked for hours. Phillips naturally took charge, dismissing Morgan's suggestions of alternate routes. When the terrain steepened, the once clear sky darkened with heavy clouds. "We should set camp before the storm," Morgan advised, eyeing the sky. Phillips laughed. 3 kilometers to the next checkpoint. We're not stopping for drizzle." Morgan looked at the others. They seemed hesitant, but nobody contradicted Phillips. She adjusted her heavy pack and stayed silent. An hour later, the drizzle turned into a violent storm. Thunder shook the sky. Rain made the ground treacherous. The group moved slowly along a trail skirting a nearly 30-foot ravine. "We need to stop," Morgan shouted over the wind. "This trail isn't safe in the rain." "Almost there," Phillips replied, "several yards ahead." That was when the ground gave way. Morgan saw the exact moment the mud beneath Phillips' boots collapsed. There was no time for a scream. Within seconds, he vanished over the ravine's edge. Without thinking, Morgan dropped her pack and ran to the brink, where the other cadets were already panicking. Below, Phillips lay on rocks, one leg at an impossible angle, and a dark red stain spreading fast across his soaked uniform. "Is he alive?" someone yelled. "Emergency radio," Morgan ordered, her voice suddenly firm. "You and you, tie the rescue ropes to that tree. I'm going down." The cadets stared at her in shock. Now, the authority in her voice was new but unmistakable. Seconds later, the radio was in the right hands, and the rope was being secured. Morgan mentally reviewed first aid steps while fastening the harness. "We cannot wait for rescue," she explained as she tested the rope. "If that stain is what I think, he's bleeding out." The descent was precarious, rain lashing her face, mud turning each movement risky. When she reached Phillips, his face was pale, lips bluish. "How's it up there?" he muttered, unfocused eyes fluttering. Morgan opened the first aid kit with quick, precise motions. "Focus on yourself. Your leg's broken, and you're losing blood." Working methodically, she placed an improvised tourniquet above the main wound and splinted the fracture. Rain kept washing the blood away. "Why are you helping me?" Phillips asked through groans of pain. "I treated you like garbage." Morgan never paused. "Because that's what we do here. And because my father would never forgive me for leaving someone behind, even an idiot like you." Movement at the top of the ravine caught her eye. Commander Rivera had arrived with the rescue team, watching with an unreadable expression. For a second, their eyes met through the curtain of rain, and Morgan was sure she saw something she had never seen on Rivera's face before: approval. 2 weeks later, Morgan walked into the mess hall to something unexpected: applause. Ryan Phillips, legs still in a cast, stood on crutches beside Commander Rivera. The noise stopped as the commander raised a hand. Cadet Foster, front and center. Morgan stepped forward, eyes straight ahead as she had been taught. Doctors confirm your quick actions saved not only Cadet Phillips' life, but probably his leg, Rivera said, her clear voice filling the hall. The teamwork and courage you showed are exactly what we expect from every member of this academy. Phillips cleared his throat, visibly uncomfortable. I owe my life to you, Foster. And an apology. He extended a hand. I hope we can start over. Morgan accepted the handshake, feeling the weight of hundreds of eyes. It was more than reconciliation. It was a fundamental shift in how everyone saw her. After the ceremony, Commander Rivera called her to her office. It was Morgan's first time inside the Armistice space, decorated with framed military photos and medals. Sit down, Foster. Morgan obeyed, noticing a photo on the desk, a group of Marines in combat gear in Iraq. She recognized her father immediately, arm around a younger Rivera's shoulders, both smiling under the desert sun. Why did you never tell me you knew my father? She asked before she could stop herself. Rivera straightened. Because it would not be fair to use that information before you found your own way. She picked up the photo, studying it a moment. Nathan was the best man I ever knew. When I learned his daughter was coming to my unit, I decided you needed to discover who you were on your own, not live in his shadow. Morgan felt unexpected tears but fought them back. What would he say about who I was before I came here? Rivera considered. He would say pain makes people do strange things. Losing someone the way we lost your father leaves a void we try to fill any way we can. She paused. But he would also say he is proud of the woman you are becoming. For the first time in years, Morgan let herself feel the full weight of her father's absence. No longer as anger at the world, but as the true grief it had always been. Next week we review your sentence, Rivera continued. Judge Harriman will come in person to decide whether you finish the program or return to juvenile custody. Morgan nodded, feeling the responsibility settle on her shoulders. What do you think he will decide? The commander stood, signaling the conversation's end. That, Cadet Foster, depends entirely on you. The Chicago courtroom looked smaller than Morgan remembered, or maybe she had grown. Wearing her dress uniform with newly awarded merit insignia subtly gleaming, she waited for Judge Harriman to enter. Her mother sat in the front row, face a mix of pride and nerves. Beside her was Commander Rivera in full dress uniform. Behind them, surprisingly, stood Zhou Chen, and even more surprising, Ryan Phillips on his immobilized leg. When the judge entered, everyone rose. Harriman looked exactly as she recalled, neatly trimmed silver hair, sharp eyes behind thin frames, a man not easily impressed. Case number 85,721. State of Illinois versus Morgan Nathan Foster, the bailiff intoned. Alternative sentence review. The judge adjusted his glasses, examining the folder before him. I see reports here from West Point Military Academy. He looked at Morgan. Quite impressive, I must say. The prosecutor stood. Your Honor, the state acknowledges the defendant's remarkable progress and does not oppose completion of the alternative program without additional juvenile detention. Harriman nodded, but his gaze stayed on Morgan. Miss Foster, the last time you stood before this court, I had little hope you would choose a different path. He closed the folder. I am pleased to admit my assessment was wrong. He paused deliberately. Before I render my final decision, I would like to hear from you. What have you learned in the past 6 months? Morgan had prepared no speech. For a moment, the silence hung while everyone waited. She felt Rivera's steady gaze, her mother's encouraging smile. Your Honor, she began, her voice steadier than expected. When I arrived at the academy, I thought I was being punished. I believed the world was against me, and I needed to fight everything and everyone. She drew a breath, gathering her thoughts. My father died serving this country when I was 11. I spent the years that followed blaming everyone. The government, the Marines, even my mother for letting him go. I turned my pain into anger because it was easier to carry. The courtroom was completely silent. At the academy, I learned discipline does not exist to break us, but to rebuild us when we are shattered. I learned true strength is not facing the world alone, but knowing when to ask for and offer help. Morgan briefly glanced at Phillips, who gave a nearly imperceptible nod. 6 months ago, I broke things because I did not know how to fix what was broken inside me. Today, I know I can build something worthwhile from the pieces I have. Her voice faltered slightly, yet she kept her bearing. My father used to say, "The uniform does not make the soldier. It is the heart of the person wearing it." I never understood that until now. I am not asking for leniency, Your Honor. I'm asking for the chance to stay on the path I have finally found. The silence that followed was profound. Morgan noticed something unexpected. Judge Harriman removed his glasses and discreetly wiped his eyes before putting them back on. "In 20 years on this bench," he said at last, voice slightly rough, "I have seldom witnessed such a genuine transformation." He struck the gavel. "This court deems your alternative sentence fulfilled. Case closed." When the session ended, Morgan was immediately embraced by her mother. Over Elise's shoulder, she saw Rivera approach, her usual serious expression softened slightly. "Your father would be proud," she said simply, extending her hand. When Morgan took it, she felt something metallic pressed into her palm. Opening her hand, she saw a combat medal, her father's medal. "He wanted you to have it when you were ready," Rivera explained. "I think that moment has come." Zoe stepped up next. "So what's next? Back to Chicago?" Morgan closed her fingers around the medal, feeling its solid, real weight. "Actually, I requested a transfer to complete the full program at the academy." She smiled softly. "Turns out I have a calling for it." Leaving the courthouse, Morgan walked into the Illinois sunlight with a certainty she had never felt before. The road ahead would not be easy. Nothing worthwhile ever was, as her father used to say, but for the first time, she was not fighting the current. She had found her own current, strong and clear, and she was ready to see where it would lead. From broken shadows I emerged, no longer drowning in the surge of anger's tide that pulled me down in grief's dark waters, where I drowned. The uniform I wear with pride reveals the strength I found inside, not just my father's legacy, but who I've always meant to be, unrising strong from shattered parts. The discipline that heals all hearts. This journey's end is just the start of mending what was torn apart. Sometimes the fall is how we learn to rise again, to live, return from shadows cast by what we've lost to finding light. Whatever cost, I'm rising now, no longer blind the path ahead. At last to find my father's daughter, standing tall, no longer waiting just to fall. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and become a part of our Everyday Life Stories community. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. We love hearing from our amazing viewers around the world.